Welcome, everybody. My name is Natalie Horton, and I am the Student Government President here at RCC. The SGA is proud to sponsor this panel discussion with Dr. Kinlaw and the members of the Citizens for the Quarter-Cent Sales Tax to Benefit RCC Committee. Please have your questions ready to ask our panel, and join me in welcoming our moderator, Ms. Kim Pryor, and our panel members.
Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about the Rockingham County quarter-cent sales tax and use referendum for the new RCC Workforce Development Center and Training Programs. Our guests today are Dr. Mark Kinlaw, President of RCC, Ms. Roxanne Griffin, who is a board member for the Citizens Group for the quarter-cent sales tax to benefit RCC, and she also serves as the chair of the Rockingham County Democratic Party. And we have Don Powell with us today. He is the co-chair of the quarter-cent sales tax committee to benefit the college, and he serves as vice chair of the Rockingham County Republican Party. So this is definitely a bipartisan referendum that's out there. I have some questions for the panel. They'll decide who would like to answer and give those answers. And at the end of the discussion, if anyone has questions, I'll call on you for questions at the end. So we'll get started. What is the quarter-cent sales tax, and how did that proposal come about? What's the history there?
Well, I believe that it came about with our economic development departments, particularly in Eden, Mike Daughtry, and here in the county. After reviewing and seeing a need for workplace development for the citizens of Rockingham County, it was decided that a 0.25% sales tax increase would be the way to possibly move that forward and create the funding for a workforce development center.
Yeah, we had some meetings, and especially I was pulled into a lot of meetings back in December and January, and with several groups as we talked about workforce issues in the county. And it was sometime about mid-January that we began to sort of finalize the concept about how to address it. And that's when it was decided that the money for this, or the revenue from the quarter-cent sales tax, would go to Rockingham Community College exclusively, as opposed to it being shared among other agencies in the county. So that's when the concept was really solidified as to how we would, take it from there and try to promote it.
What societal issues are present in Rockingham County that present a need for this type of facility and the sales tax that would help it come to fruition?
We believe that there are a number of societal issues that have played a part in getting Rockingham County into the position that they're in now. And some of those are that right now, Rockingham County experiences 18.1% poverty rate, which means that 18% or 18 people out of every 100 live at or below the poverty level in Rockingham County. In addition to that, I think there's about 12% under the age of 65 that are on disability in the county. So if you add those two together, and I know you can't quite do this, but if you were to add those two together, you're at almost a third of the workforce in Rockingham County that may not be productive or less than productive. What you can assume is that most of that group will be seeking some kind of benefit or assistance from our county, which is, puts a drain on the taxpayers. In addition to that, since 1990, there's been a significant uptick in the number of single-parent homes, particularly single mothers. And so it presents a difficult situation for them to try to work and make a living and tend to a child and all those things as you can readily understand. So we have some issues here that are affecting our workforce. And in addition to that, now we no longer offer very much vocational education in our public schools. When I was in school, we did. And a lot of the basics that I use every day in my business, I learned in high school. And children are missing out on that because we no longer have that. And I think that is a number of issues that help to have helped to bring us to the situation we are experiencing now, where we definitely have a need for a workforce development center to be able to provide these children that are coming out of high school with some vocational type training so that they can seek good employment and that they can buy houses and they can raise families and they can make a good living and not be looking for assistance and those kind of things. There's nothing wrong with that. There are people that have to have that. But it's our goal as citizens of this county, it should be our goal to make sure that all of our children get to experience the American dream. And that's the goal of this, is to provide that workforce training. And it's not only for the kids coming out of high school, but it's for older folks as well who may be stuck in a job that they're not making enough money to make ends meet, and they may want to retool, so to speak, and seek better employment. And this would provide the avenue for them to do that.
Any other comments? I think Don covered it.
Pretty much
I think you covered it.
Well, let's talk about workforce a little bit and the need and the training issue that you mentioned. Do our businesses and industries have needs that are not being met?
Absolutely. Right now, from month to month, there could be 700 to 900 jobs that are not filled currently because we don't have the skills to meet the industry needs. There are, it's incredible that we cannot, that we already have jobs that we don't have the skills to fill. But even so, we have, in this county, it's kind of interesting. We have an aging population, and there are, the youth of this county tend to make an exodus as soon as they're out of high school because the opportunities are not here for them. They end up going to other community colleges that are scattered around us in order to get the education that they need to get a decent job that pays well, that keeps them off of social services. And by... I'm sorry, I'm not doing this very well. The need for... Recently, there was a textile mill that was trying to fill 30 positions. And they interviewed 200 people. And they were only able to fill 15 of those positions.
Wow.
So there's a definite gap in here with the training that's needed for industry. And in the future, it's estimated that probably 40% of industry needs are going to demand technical education. And with technology changing so rapidly, I mean, we see this with our cell phones. From one year to the next, it's a different item. And the same thing applies to industry. Their technology is changing to increase productivity, and our workforce has to keep up with that technology in order to get a job and keep a job. So that's part of it.
I've been involved. I've been here 3 years now, and these workforce issues that we're talking about are not just Rockingham County, and we'll get into some more of that as we go. But I've been involved this year. I've been in the community college business now for 30 years. This past January, and this past year, I've been in more meetings than I can ever remember, centered around workforce issues, and not just what the needs are, but how can we address them? And these are not easy issues to address. This is not something you fix overnight. This is putting a plan in place that can make a difference long term, and it's multifaceted. And so I've. In fact, just recently, my academic VP and I, Ms. Sheila Regan, and I sat down with an industry in Rockingham County and talked about what their needs were specifically. And not all the training that we're talking about has to be degrees. Now, obviously, we want to push for students to get the most education they possibly can, but also understanding that not all of the students come here want a 2-year degree or even a 1-year degree. And not all the jobs out there require that. And industry, some of the industry will tell you that that's not everything they're looking for. So they're looking for some short-term training that leads to an industry-recognized credential or a certification where someone can advance their skill set and advance within the job that they have. So we sat down with an industry here just recently and outlined what their needs are currently with their workforce, and how can we then come back to the college and map out a pathway for those employees to improve their skill sets to benefit that particular industry, because their turnover is so high that they're trying to grow their own and keep them. And that's what a lot of the workforce issues have been centered around is the turnover that we're experiencing. Then it gets into things like not just technical skills, but it gets into what we call soft skills, and that's showing up for work on time. It's a work ethic. It's working with integrity. It's working in a team. It's able to take constructive criticism. It's problem solving and critical thinking. So our industry base here in the county is really struggling with that. So that affects the turnover. So we're talking not just about what can we do from a technical standpoint to train students, but what can we also build into our instruction, those types of skills that sometimes we take for granted, but they end up being some of the most important skill sets that we see lacking. So that's some of the discussion we're having as well for our workforce. This is going to take a significant plan or program to put in place to address what industry and business is experiencing out there. And I don't want I don't want the public to think this is just for large industry. This is small business, and America's built with small business as well. So this is some of the same. We're hearing the same from small business operators and owners as we are some of the large industry.
Dr. Kinlaw brought up a good point that I wanted to say something about, as well as Roxanne. And those of us that in our age group, it's hard for us to understand the soft skills approach that he was talking about, because we got a lot of it at home, and the atmosphere was different back then. And so for employers to be experiencing that difficulty is something that we find a little bit hard to understand. But the truth of the matter is we do live in a different time. And so we're going to have to use or put forth some effort to teach students, the how to submit to authority in the workplace and how to show up, as he was saying. And then the other thing that Roxanne was talking about was, right now in our school system, about 55% of our graduating seniors will go on to get some sort of degree, whether it be a 2-year or 4-year degree. But 45% of them will not attend any type of college at all. And so we found ourselves kind of in a revolving door situation where those 55% go to school, they get an education, they can't come back here because we don't have jobs for them, for their skill set. And so then the 45% that are left have no skill set. And so what we find ourselves doing, we're spending our tax dollars educating over half of our students who we will never reap any benefit from whatsoever. And then we've got 45% that may not turn out to be productive citizens that we're needing to help, because they should have the same opportunities as everybody else. One of the other things I was going to say, the trickle-down effects of this, it's not, as Dr. Kinlaw said, it's not just about big business or manufacturing industry. But when you build this building and you move those programs into it and you create that extra space, then we become able to institute programs such as plumbing, electrical, carpentry, all those things that there is absolutely no shame in starting a business. I'm a general contractor, and I can tell you firsthand that it's very difficult to hire people. I used to make the joke that if they could read a tape measure, then I would hire them. Now, if they can just spell it, I'll probably hire them. So there is a lack of skills training in this county that needs to be fulfilled, and this is certainly an avenue to do it, I believe.
Yeah, that's another thing, is that in the next 10 years, 40% of baby boomers will be retiring. And that means that there's going to be a huge number of jobs that will open up in skilled trades. Plumbing, electricians, engineers, HVAC, welding. I mean, just all kinds of job opportunities that have been occupied by boomers that are now going to be moving out. So this is the time to be moving education in for people to be able to fill those jobs. Right now, just recently, I had a plumbing problem. I couldn't get an appointment with a plumber for 2 weeks. And when they did come, it was $70 an hour for 2 people. That's a good living.
Yeah, I think Roxanne brings up a point I really haven't thought about. I'm at the tail end of the baby boomers, and so as we all age out of and start to retire, I think she's absolutely right. One of the things that I think we've heard for years is the shortage in healthcare employees, whether it's nursing, whether it's radiography, respiratory therapy, whatever it is in the health field. And that's still an issue without question, and I'll get to some of that as we go through it. But we know those needs have been out there for a long time, but we've never really thought about, now we've got a shortage in some of these skilled areas that we rely on, whether if it's plumbing, if it's electrical, those types of things. Now we're beginning to see it there. And that's something that we just haven't experienced. We've been experiencing this with healthcare for a long time. Still an issue. But now we're branching into other areas that are significant areas of need that we've got to figure out how to address. And I think our county is beginning to see some of that.
So basically, we've got 45% of our high school graduates that they don't pursue anything after high school.
That's right.
And maybe they go to work for a little while and later decide they want to come back to school. And this type of action that we're hoping to take here with this facility and providing different types of training programs may be something that they can grasp onto that's short term, because let's face it, like you said, not every job requires a 4-year degree. Not every job requires a 2-year degree. It requires a skill.
That's right.
And what we've got to get past, and this is a societal thing, and it's been in place for a number of years now. It didn't used to be this way, but it is now. There's been a strong push nationally to push students for 4-year degrees. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm a 4-year product, obviously, and hopefully my 2 kids will be. But we're seeing the job needs are changing, and so a lot of the good jobs out there are not necessarily going to need that 4-year degree. And there's nothing wrong with getting an associate degree or even a 1-year degree and going to work. There is nothing wrong with that. But from an image standpoint and sort of a mindset, people, I think in the general population, they don't always see it that way. They're saying, you're falling short if you don't go get a 4-year degree. And I think we've got to rethink that as a nation and re-emphasize that these skilled positions, these skilled jobs, are significant jobs with good pay, with good opportunity for advancement, and we've got to rethink and revisit how we portray those jobs. And the idea of working in these old textile mills when the ventilation was bad, and those days are over. I've toured at least 12 to 15 of the larger industries in this county. They're very clean environments. They're high tech, and they're good. They're very good environments to work in. We've got to get our younger generation to see that. But we've got to get to the parents of our younger generation so that they begin to see things a little differently about what it means to go work in manufacturing or industry. We've got to revisit some of that and recouch how we approach these jobs.
Well, the 1/4-cent sales tax, the revenue is all designed to build the Workforce Development Center on the RCC campus. So what is that center going to be? What is it going to do? What is going to be taught there? And why is that important?
Well, I guess that's mine.
I guess so.
Well, as we talked through the concept back in December, January, and on into to early February, and I've been able to look at, or we have been able to look at what's happening around us. Like I said, this is not an issue that just RCC has and that Rockingham County has. We've all of our neighboring counties, Guilford, Alamance, Randolph, Forsyth, and even up into Virginia, the Danville area, for example. They're addressing these needs too. They have the same issues. This is not unique to us, but they are addressing it in a way that's going to be through state-of-the-art facilities that can graduate the students that we need to enter these jobs that we're talking about. And so what we're talking about doing here, we have 2 old facilities on our campus. We call them Industrial Technology 1 and 2. Industrial Technology 1 was one of the original buildings built in 1967. And then our Industrial Technology 2 building was built in 1979. And they are outdated. Now, there's some good equipment in those buildings. I will tell you, there's some very good equipment in those buildings, but there's some very old equipment there too. But those buildings are just in bad need of renovation and to upfit those for these types of programs that we run in them. The programs that we run in those are more of advanced manufacturing. That's more the terminology that we use today. That would be HVAC, it would be electrical systems, industrial systems, electronics engineering, machining, welding, those types of programs that we're talking about. To go in and renovate those 2 facilities is very costly, and it's hard to renovate them and upfit those buildings to fit these types of programs. And we don't have enough space. So we need to get these particular programs in a new Center for Workforce Development is what we would call it. We would build it on the very entrance to our campus to make it prominent and send a message to the county that this is what we're about, and also to industry that's looking to relocate here. And I'll get to that in just a few minutes. But it would house these new programs. Plus, it would provide space for additional programs that we want to add over a period of time. We would also create within it some corporate training space that our industry partners can come in and use for training for their employees. They can use our facility. We would also have some meeting space for industry to use, for our economic development team across the county to use as we recruit industry. So the idea behind this is not just to produce graduates of advanced manufacturing, but it is also to serve industry needs in all sorts of ways. We'd also move our small business center in there. We do a lot of counseling and advising for business startups in the county. And we would also move our customized training programs in there. Customized training is training that we do with industry. It does exactly what it says it is. We customize training according to what an industry needs are. And that is funded through the state. It's free to our industry friends. And a lot of times when an industry relocates to a county, part of the incentive package is that the community college locally would be able to provide certain kinds of training. So industry looks to us when they come to a county and they're looking at where they may want to locate. They want to make sure that community college in that county can do the training that they need. And so we want to make sure we pull that into that space as well. So this isn't just about advanced manufacturing with large industry. It's also serving our small industry friends and partners as well as small business. Then the idea behind that would be able to take the 2 facilities that we would move those programs from, and then we could renovate, and Don brought this up just a little while ago, we could go back and renovate those facilities for other types of programs that we know there's a need for. Plumbing would be a good example. A 1-year electrical program is another good example. Some construction trades. It could be a host of other types of programs that would not be as expensive to renovate those facilities from an upfit type of idea. So that's the thinking here. I know we're talking right now about that one particular center, but that's the main investment from the revenue from the quarter-cent sales tax. If the quarter-cent sales tax was in place right now, it would generate $1.8 million annually to RCC. And so we would take, the main investment would be this new facility. And so that would be then that would be placed into obviously we'd have to have a debt service for that facility. The college cannot go in debt, so the county would be responsible for paying that debt over a long period of time. So that would be where the primary investment from the revenue would be with the new Center for Workforce Development, and the revenue for the quarter-cent sales tax would pay the debt over a long period of time. That's the idea behind it. Of course, we've got other money that comes in, which we'll get to in just a minute.
Right.
So that's the idea of the new facility.
Well, and you mentioned that other communities around us are doing this, so we're trying to catch up. We're trying to expand our program offerings in this area to attract more students. So we must think this is going to affect our enrollment. And I believe it did affect our enrollment when we built the Owens building or renovated the Owens building. So
no doubt, the Owens building. When I got here in January of 2015, the Owens building had been gutted and it was under renovation, and so completely gutted. And so we basically started that building over just about. And so that was renovated for a new health science building, and it was a great idea that the college had before I came, and I was able just to work with our staff to finish it. But it is now it's a new health science building, but it's a simulated hospital, and it is state of the art. We do a lot of simulation training, and we've been able to expand some programming because of the available space that we didn't used to have. And we've seen a 64% growth in both of our RN, our 2-year nursing degree, and our practical nursing degree, which is a 1-year program. And we've added the LPN to RN option to it as well. So we've had the additional capacity to do that, and it has helped to grow those health science programs. So I feel much better about what we can do in our health science programs than I did prior to that building being ready. And it's obviously attracted more students. And it's not just the numbers, it's the quality of training that we can do. And I think our faculty in our health science building would tell you that what they can do is so much better than what we've been able to do in the past. And we're able to train our students and have them ready for those kind of careers. So we've seen it work in another cluster of programs.
Well, when our admissions staff brings young people on campus, whether they're middle schoolers or high schoolers, and they go into a facility that is state of the art, maybe they get excited about learning something that in the past they may have thought was dull or uninviting or a bad work atmosphere. Maybe they will become convinced that there is a career for them without a long-term commitment to academics. And that's sort of the idea of turning this workforce around. Is that am I getting it?
I think that's a key to it, is getting the school system involved with this and get students involved at an early age and letting them come over and see what is available for them if they choose not to do a 4-year degree. And one of the things that, as Dr. Kinlaw was talking, I wanted to point out that, we're not competing with the surrounding areas just in the form of education. These are the same counties that are competing with us for jobs and industry to come here. And we're in a unique position in Rockingham County because we're on the Virginia line. So it's not, people used to say, well, you're competing against 100 counties. Well, no, we're competing against way under more than 100 counties because we have to compete with Southern Virginia as well. So these areas that already have the workforce development, obviously they're going to get the first looks from industry because they can provide them with a qualified workforce, which is what we understand that they're looking for now.
So, I see this center in this whole idea, this whole concept. There's a couple of things to it. One is we've got to meet the needs of business and industry. That's at the core of our mission. But the other side of that is it's about the students that we have. And I want to make sure that we can attract more students. And then those students that we have, I want them to have the best training we possibly can provide them because that's what they deserve. And so I want them to be in a good position when they leave here that they can get the job that they're after, and they can be successful. So that's really what we're talking about here, as I look at it.
It also goes back to what I was talking about earlier, in that students tend to go where the education is available to them. And if you have these centers of education that are set up in other counties that are training specifically for industries that they have attracted because of their community colleges, then our students or our youth in Rockingham County are very likely to move to those areas to go into those jobs that are available there rather than commuting back and forth. And so if we have a community college here that can serve them and they can stay at home, then that's wonderful for all of us.
One of the other things that I'd just like to say to the students that may look at this or listen to this presentation is that you're only limited to your success by the amount of motivation you have. I will be the first to admit that a 4-year degree is probably the fastest way to getting to the point that you make bank, as my daughter says. And you get to the point you're making a significant salary if you pursue a degree that is in an area that is in demand. But having said that, I don't have a 4-year degree, and I've started 2 businesses. My first one, I had 26 employees and was a $4 million a year business. And this one, I have 6 employees and we're at a $2 million a year business. So I tell you that to say that in this county, you can find enough resources that if you cannot attend college or you don't have the motivation to attend, you can still do very well. You can start a business. You're not limited just to learn a manufacturing process and go work on a machine. If that's what you want to do, that's certainly fine, and the college can teach you that. But there are programs here and education that you can get right here at this college that will prepare you to start a business. And you can be the boss, and you can be hiring people and those kind of things. So you're only limited to the amount of work you want to do. And it's right here in little Rockingham County that you can find the resources that you need to do that.
Well, I know that, switching gears just a little bit and going back to money, RCC still has a portion of the North Carolina Connect the Bond funding. So how's that going to be combined for this project with the $0.25?
Well, let me talk about 2 things here. With the Center for Workforce Development, that's the primary investment, which we've already covered. We would also have additional funds that would come to us outside of the debt service for that building that we would have an option to use to do other renovations on campus, to expand program areas, to create space for additional programs, for improvements in our technology, improvements in our state-of-the-art equipment. So that money would also be coming in. Then the college does have, back in 2015, the NC Connect State Bond Fund was passed, and for all 58 community colleges. Of course, it was passed for the university system as well. The portion that RCC received was $6.8 million, and we have already started spending that. We have renovated the building that we're sitting in now, Advanced Technology Building. We have renovated our library. We're renovating our student center now. And we still have a good portion of that money to use for other renovations. And what we would want to do is take some of the $0.25 sales tax revenue and couple it with the NC Connect bond funds to renovate other space on campus. And just some examples, you could couple it with our science building has to be renovated, which of course has the labs in it that prepare for health sciences. That building needs to be renovated. We could go back to the space that we talked about in the old facilities and renovate that space with coupling the 2 sets of funds to bring back some of those types of programs that we need. We could enhance other program areas like our adjacent campus with our emergency services, which is a big piece of what we need to be doing to prepare our fire and rescue personnel in our county, as well as our basic law enforcement program, which does not have its own driving pad right now and needs its own. We have to go over to Guilford to use theirs. But we would want to invest some money, and it could be a combination of the NC Connect bond funds and the $0.25 sales tax over at the emergency services training ground. So there's lots of options to expand and improve upon. Those NC Connect bond funds, though, will be spent pretty quickly over the next 3 to 4 years. The state wants us to spend that as fast as we possibly can, really within about 5 years. So in about 3 to 4 years, we'll have that money spent on different renovation projects. But the $0.25 sales tax renovations that we are talking about need to be more that are student program specific, that we can spend to try to create a better learning environment, and also from a programming standpoint to try to give them the type of training they need. So NC Connect bond funds, like for the library, can be for all sorts of different projects, but we can couple those monies to do more significant renovation. But as I mentioned, the $0.25 sales tax would be in place for years to come, whereas the NC Connect bond funds, that's more short-lived. It's the next 3 to 4 years we'll have most of that spent.
So when this facility is constructed, I mean, it's being at the entrance of the campus, it's going to say to our students, to our prospective students, to our community and our neighbors that we are focused on jobs and workforce in this county, that's very important to us. That's
the core of our mission as a community college system. We do college transfer as well, but that's the core of what we're really set up to do. This is what we should be doing.
It also says to industry, we're ready.
We're ready.
Right.
Rockingham County, you're in a good place.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, let's get to the bottom line. What does this mean for taxes for our citizens? And how tell us about the tax.
Well, first of all, let me just say that the 0.25% sales tax doesn't apply to anything that your normal sales tax doesn't, which is groceries, gasoline, and medicine. So we can dispel the rumor right there that that's going to cause a problem for our elderly population because those three things aren't taxed. And now, it won't be taxed at the extra 0.25%. What we're talking about is $1 cent on every $4 purchase, or 25 cents on every $100 purchase. And today I had to chuckle a little bit because I was looking at Facebook and someone, actually it was a staff member here that was promoting it on her Facebook page, and somebody said, well, aren't you afraid that people are going to start going to Greensboro and Danville to shop where the taxes are less? And so I thought, okay, they're going to spend $10 to go to Greensboro to save 25 cents on a $100 purchase. So that would be like economic suicide. So I'm not sure that's going to happen. So it's really a very minimal impact on our citizens here. And then when you consider also that I believe last year we did $52 or $53 million in tourism. So those people that are coming from outside the county are going to actually be able to participate and help build this with their dollars that they spend here that they don't live here. They're not really what you say our folks. So it is a very minimal contribution to I think it's probably the most important problem or the most important issue in Rockingham County right now, but it's a very small contribution to that, and it will be a very exciting time if this passes. So it is very minimal at that. So, Roxanne, you want?
Yeah, 1 penny on every $4 you spend is not very much. A lot of people don't realize that because we have a 6.75% sales tax already, that tax gets rounded up and rounded down to make it possible to apply the tax. Now, we don't know exactly how much of that ends up being an overage or an underage, but nonetheless, some of us are already paying a 1/4 cent sales tax every time it gets rounded up. And that's money that we could direct as a sales tax, as a general sales tax. We don't have any control over where that goes. But if we vote for the 1/4 cent sales tax, then we have direct control over where that money gets spent, right here in Rockingham County, for our benefit. So that's another reason to...
Well, something else that wasn't on the list that I learned, that our Commissioners Board have passed a resolution about how this is to be used. And maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when the commissioners back in February passed the resolution to put this on the ballot, and it will be on the May 8th primary ballot. So if you do not vote in the primary, you will never get the opportunity to vote for this because you will not see it on the general ballot in November. But they did put a blurb in there that this was going to be for the college. However, when we started pushing this, we found that a lot of people wanted to see a direct resolution from the county commissioners pledging this money would be used for the college. And so they did. They went back and they did a resolution March the 19th. Yeah, March the 19th. And all 5 of our county commissioners voted for it. They were eager to do so. And so right now we have a commitment from this board that says these tax dollars that are collected will be used for the building of this, for the college's function. Now, one of the things that we're hearing in the public that is brought up from time to time is that this resolution is not binding on future boards. But the thing is, once you get this passed and we spend the money, then the county is on board for paying the money back. So they're probably not going to do anything with the money but use it to pay the debt service off. So we kind of get them, we kind of put them in a bind there once we spend the money. So
Just setting the time.
Well, in addition to that, in the second resolution that the commissioners passed, they also recommended that each consecutive board pass another resolution
Right,
committing
vote on it.
those funds to RCC.
Well, it's great that they were all in agreement and that they came together to pass that for the community to let them know what their thoughts were. And that election day is May 8th.
it is.
So that's a very important day for our community. Any other comments before I open the floor for questions?
Only thing I can say is that it would be transforming for us. Almost $2 million a year over a long period of time. And the only way that you get if the quarter-cent sales tax passes by law, the only thing that gets that off the books is to put it back in front of the public to vote again. But it would be transforming for us. There's no question about it. And I think we would be, I think we're, like I said earlier, I think we're a good college, but we need to be better and we need to be able to step up to the plate and deliver more than we do now. And to me, this is the way that helps us do that.
Well, you said we owe that to our students and prospective students in our community.
Plus, it's important that the public knows and our students know that when they go to the ballot, by law, you cannot say what the money is going to be used for. So when they get there, it's not going to say that this quarter-cent sales tax is for RCC. So that's part of why we are trying to educate the public on what the money would be used for and what projects and so forth. But it cannot be on that ballot.
One last thing that I would like to say before we do the questions is that and I just forgot what I was going to say. But this referendum the committee has been given significant contributions from the community to help with advertising, so that you are starting to see billboards and yard signs and those kind of things that are popping up. But I would suggest to those that may see this, if you can help us by putting a yard sign up, if you believe in this, if this is a cause that you think you can support, then contact us or contact the school and we'll get the information. But it's very important that we get this information out to the general public, because every time that we go somewhere and speak, once people are educated in what is actually happening and what you're going to do with the money, then we're finding that we're having overwhelming success with those people and getting them to get on board with this. But it is information that's got to be gotten out to the public so that they understand what's happening, because like Mark said, you're not going to see it on the ballot that it's for RCC.
So May 8th, quarter-cent sales tax. If you want information on signs or anything else, we can contact the college. We can put you in contact with county government or wherever those signs are located.
That's correct.
On the ballot, it says very simply, for or against. If you want this for Rockingham Community College, then you want to black out the for.
Well, do we have questions?
Sure. After it's paid off, what will those funds be used for?
Good question. The debt service would probably be somewhere around 20 years to pay that off, and even during those 20 years, we're going to get. Okay, let me break it down. Let's say it's let's just for even numbers. Let's say it's $2 million. They do project about a 2% growth in how much revenue this would come in each year. So let's say it's $2 million, and let's say the debt service on that is about $1.2 million per year for 20 years. That leaves $800,000 that we would have available coming to the college every single year, including while that debt service is being paid off and even after that debt service is paid off. That will still continue to come to us. And so we would still use it for renovation of new program space, for expansion, but it's also the technology that you see in the classroom, it's state-of-the-art equipment, it's all of those types of things that you got to stay on top of. And for example, if you go over to our simulated hospital, we have a lot of simulators. Those simulators can be anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 a piece, and the lifespan of those is going to be less than 7 years a lot of times. So being able to stay on top of these things, and if you're in in those programs that have advanced manufacturing, you get a CNC machine or some of those types of things, it is incredibly expensive. So being able to stay on top of that and make sure we're state of the art, making sure that our students are in front of computers that are always up to date and are not or 5 or 6 years old, that's important. And so that's the type of thing that we would be able to stay on top of over the course of each year. Right now, from a budget standpoint, our college gets, from state funds, we get about $450,000 a year in state funds for equipment. And that's for any furniture that you see, it's any equipment that you see in your labs, and that goes very quickly. And so that's not much money. And so that the quarter-cent sales tax revenue helps to supplement that over each year to be able to to make sure that we stay up to date where we're supposed to be. So that's hopefully answers your question, but that's where it would go.
Other questions?
You mentioned that there's a stigma against certain skills and certain trades, and that keeps students from enrolling in these programs to get that education. If this sales tax is passed, and that opens the door to allowing new programs at this college and potentially enrolling these students in these programs to fill those jobs, that stigma is still there. Won't that prevent students from coming? What's RCC going to do to help eliminate that stigma in our surrounding area to keep students here and keep students?
Good question. Very good question, and we've talked about that a lot. We talk about it all the time here at the college. In how do you go about? In fact, our whole community college system is getting ready to embark on a marketing campaign statewide about what community colleges are, and particularly focusing on career and technical education. But there's no easy fix to that. But let me address it this way: I do believe that. We need to be state of the art, because if we bring out, in fact, we had about 80 to 100 seventh graders on our campus about 2 weeks ago, and they took part in different lab settings across the campus. That's one of the things you do is you bring these kids on our campus at an early age. You don't wait until they're seniors in high school. You do it at a much earlier age. And you also meet with their parents when you can, and we've had that chance a couple of times. But we'll do a lot more of that. But if you're really state of the art, and they get to participate in these types of lab experiences, particularly at an early age, it begins to change their mindset, I believe, in terms of what there is out there. I think a lot of kids they understand computers, but they haven't been introduced to robots and robotics. They haven't been introduced to what a CNC machine does and how cool that is, simulators in healthcare. We're already seeing as we bring students into our health science building and they get to see demonstrations of what takes place in each of those labs, it tweaks their interests. It changes how they look at things. So if we look state of the art, and we're high tech, I do think it changes how students look at things. But more importantly, sometimes it's can you change how parents look at things? And I think that's why I think we've got to look more like what you see out there in the community in our industries. So if that's one way to approach it. Another way is this is exciting stuff to me. I think that. We've been real fortunate here to have a school system that will sit at the table with us and talk about ways to partner together. We talk to them a lot. They've been very good to work with in terms of how can we look at options for students. If we can become more state of the art with new facility space, then we can get more high school kids coming to our campus, taking college courses, getting college credit. and beginning to change their mind about what are the potential paths here, and that's important. We had 57 high school students taking college courses 3 years ago when I arrived. That does not include our early college now. That's just other high school students, our other 4 high schools. That was 152 this past fall. That needs to be 300 to 400, and we're working on that. But if we have the space to be able to get students from high school enrolled in some of our technical and vocational areas, I think it begins to change how they look at it. But you got to start early. You can't wait until they're seniors. You've got to start when they're in the 7th and 8th grade and get them on our campus. So that's some of what we've been talking about to try to change that image. The other thing we've done recently that I'm really excited about is we launched back in early March what's called Rockingham. It is a pre-apprenticeship program. We have 20 students that now will be pre-apprentices with 6 different industries in our county, and they will have those experiences as a youth apprentice, and then that can lead to an adult apprentice and then hopefully into a job offer later on. We've got to do more of that, and that begins to change image. And that launch of the Rockingham program is really exciting for me, and to see those high school students and see how excited they were. In fact, this coming August, I believe, we're going to have what's called, in quotes, sort of a draft day, almost like you see with the NBA and the NFL, but it's going to be a draft day where industry picks those students that they want for their apprentices. They're in a pre-apprenticeship type of thing now. So those are the type of things we've got to do more of. But having the facilities and the added space gives us a chance, I think, to partner better with our public schools. Plus, it does better to help us partner with industry. And, of course, they already see us as an answer to a lot of their issues. But we've got to work on the students and their parents. But I think this is a vehicle to help make some of that happen. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Well, another thing is that this is a natural pendulum swing. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, everybody pushed a 4-year degree. And it was because that's where the jobs were. If you wanted to get a decent paying job, you wanted to get ahead in life, that was where you went. And now the pendulum has swung back the other direction. And now it's more technically oriented, it's more industrial. But nonetheless, that's where the paycheck's going to be. And parents will start catching on to this. Students are already catching on to this fact, because when you go and you get a 4-year degree, it is not a guarantee that you won't be flipping burgers. You know, you need to take a look at what is available in the job market. And industry's looking that way. Parents will start looking that way. Students, I hope, would be looking toward what they are going to be able to do in order to make a decent living in the changing environment. So you're going to have, in addition to the educational opportunities being pressed by high schools and middle schools and the community college and even colleges, you're going to also have this being reinforced by what is going to be available in the job market.
It's important to recognize that there's a stigma out there, and it's been there, and I think part of it's because of the way that we were technical colleges, technical institutes at one time when all of us started back in the 60s and early 70s, and a lot of our mission was to be in jobs where you get your hands dirty, and some people still look at us that way. And I try to tell people, listen, we're teaching calculus, we're teaching chemistry, we're teaching advanced courses here in our machining and other programs across the board, that they would be quite surprised if they come and sit in on some of our classes and look at the level of what we have to teach. I think that's changing some. It's not something that changes overnight, but I think that parents are beginning to recognize that community colleges are such a good option, and it's still something that we're working on. But I think as a system, we're beginning to recognize that we've got to address this and get our students that are in high school to start thinking of us more as a first option as opposed to a fallback. But most of the students that you talk about that goes to a community college, Most of them have a good experience, and they get off to the right start. They get into careers, and they do very well. And we've got to recognize as a state that the community college system educates 750,000 students a year, or we enroll about 750,000 a year. And we've got to get the legislature and the public to understand that more money needs to be invested in our community colleges as compared to our universities. And so it's a work in progress, but I think there's some things beginning to happen that I've seen in the last several years where people are beginning to realize, and look at students and say, you really need to go to a community college. That's what you need to do to start. And then if you stay there and go into the career pathway, that's great. If you want to transfer, start there and go, and then transfer out. There's a lot of success stories in Rockingham County. I'm telling you, a lot of success stories that started here.
I think the stigma is best combated, like Dr. Kinlaw said, with getting students in early. Because if you can prick an interest in something, whether it be CNC machine or whether it be welding or whatever the case may be, electrical, carpenter, all those things that I grew up with. And the stigma for me was when I got ready to buy a car, if I couldn't afford one, that was a problem. Or if I wanted to take my wife and daughter out to eat and I couldn't afford to go, that was a problem. So if I needed to do plumbing work to be able to accomplish those things that I wanted to do, that was fine. It didn't matter. The thing is, we've got to put the opportunity in front of the students and let them decide what it is they want to do. Because most of them know that college is not an option at an early. I knew that. Well, I knew college wasn't an option for me. And a lot of these kids that are graduating, that 45% that I was telling you about, a lot of them know that college is not going to be an option, or at least a 4-year degree is not going to be an option for them. And it may be nothing more that they aren't motivated enough to do it. But they also know that they've got to do something to earn a living, and they want to do that. Nobody graduates high school and wants to be a bum, or they want to be on social services or those kind of things. They want to be able to provide for themselves and provide for their family. It's our job to be able to put those opportunities in front of them and prick that interest, and then give them the opportunity to go forward and get a certificate or get a 2-year degree and go out and go to work and become a productive citizen in our community.
One of the things that we have here too that, all community colleges have it in place, but I think we're probably far ahead of a lot of community colleges in our system in this regard. I mean, students come to us just like they go to universities and other community colleges in need of financial assistance and scholarship help to make their dream a reality. And that's the same here at Rockingham, in Rockingham County. We have a significant number of students, or significant percentage of students that come to us needing financial assistance to go to school. Well, there's obviously the federal Pell Grant and the other kinds of financial aid packages that are out there from our state and our federal government. But our college has a very large foundation, and so last year our foundation gave out 275 scholarships to students, and not all community colleges can do that. So when we try to create the additional space and the additional options for students, it's not without having some way of being able to take more students and provide them with the financial assistance that they need. So it's not just saying, okay, students, this is available for you, but yet that student says, well, I don't have the means to make that happen. Well, we've got some opportunity here to really make some dreams come more reality because of what our foundation can do, that a lot of colleges in our system really don't have the same capacity to do that we can. And I think it's an important point, because you can't just create opportunity without being able to help that student financially to make that a reality.
Any final questions?
I'm going to be coming here in a few years, and I was wondering what campus will be like if this does pass.
Well, I'll give you what my vision would be, but that's a very good question. What I would hope that you would find is, first, that we've got top-rate faculty and staff, faculty to teach you and staff to support you and take care of our students. This college, I think, believes in its students and does the best it can to help students to be successful. So I would hope you would find an environment where you would feel like you're supported and that you're also getting the type of instruction that you need. I would hope that when you're sitting in a classroom that you've got the technology that is up to date, is much up to date that we can provide for you, whether that's through the type of instructional technology and so forth, or whether you're sitting in a lab and it's the type of equipment in that lab that you need, depending on what program you're in, that can train you at the highest level. I think that's our responsibility. I think when students come to us, it's our responsibility to provide that. So I would hope you would find an inviting environment, a friendly environment, one where you're supported, where the instruction is what you want, but it's also where you have all the resources at your fingertips to help you to train in whatever field that is. So I would hope that you would have facilities that are state-of-the-art, that are comfortable for you, and also a campus that's safe for you and so forth. So that's sort of the vision that I would hope you would find here.
Well, thank you so much, panel. Natalie, do you have some final words for us?
We want to thank you all for being here again today. Let's give them another. If you are eligible to vote and you have not registered yet, the last day to register is this Friday, April 13th. Your voice matters, and your vote is your voice. If you want your voice to be heard concerning this tax, come on out and vote on May 8th. If you guys have any other questions, don't be afraid to ask. The panelists will be here for a little bit longer. And don't be afraid to email, Facebook, Instagram, or Snapchat RCC and the student government. We love hearing your questions and feedback. So thank you guys again.
Thank you.